Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are doing something a little different with our itinerary. Usually, when we look at history or mythology, we tend to look up at the conquerors, the sun gods, the people building towers. But the stack of sources we have today is pointing us in, well, the opposite direction.
We are definitely heading off the beaten path, or rather beneath it.
Way beneath it, we are descending into the underworld. Now, I have to admit, when I first looked at the topic, my brain immediately went to the standard pop culture image.
Fire and brimstone.
Exactly. Fire, brimstone, devils with pitchforks, maybe a heavy metal soundtrack. But looking at these classical Greek sources, that is not accurate at all.
It really isn't, and that is the first mental adjustment we need to make. We aren't visiting hell in the modern theological sense. We are visiting the realm of Hades. It requires a completely different atmospheric palette.
The descriptions in the text are surprisingly specific about the vibe. It's not chaotic noise, it's silence.
It's a heavy, somber silence. The sources describe architecture made of obsidian black volcanic glass. It's cold, it's dark, and it's vast. We're talking about a geography that lies deep beneath the earth, past the river Acheron. You have Charon, the ferryman, navigating those waters. But once you cross, you aren't in a torture chamber.
Yeah.
You're in a place of implacable justice.
Implacable justice. That feels like a key phrase. It's not about cruelty, it's about finality.
Precisely. It's the end of the line. And our mission today is to understand a figure who rises directly out of that somber, silent context. We're looking at the Princess Melinoë.
And she is a fascinating case study because she seems to be the intersection of two very, very different worlds. The sources identify her as the daughter of Hades, that stern king of the dead, and Persephone, who is the queen of life and spring.
She is the synthesis. She stands at the crossroads. But here's the thing about Greek mythology, and we see this in the research time and time again. You cannot understand a character just by looking at their parents. The apple doesn't just fall from the tree. It falls from a very tangled, very bloody family history.
Right, the family reunions must be awkward. To really get Melinoë, we have to look at the shadows looming over her, and the biggest shadow of all seems to be her grandfather.
The grandfather, the Titan Kronos. This is where the story truly begins.
I feel like most people have a vague idea of the Titans. They think of them as just the big bad guys before Zeus. But the sources we have on the Golden Age paint a really disturbing picture. Golden Age sounds nice, you know.
It's the classic example of propaganda, or maybe nostalgia for a time before laws. The Golden Age was ruled by Kronos. Hesiod's Theogony describes it as a time before justice or reason existed. It was a time of raw, unchecked power.
And violence. I was reading the notes on how Kronos actually came to power, and it is graphic. He didn't just get voted in.
No, it was a coup born of family dysfunction. His mother, Gaia the Earth, was furious because her husband, Uranus the Sky, kept imprisoning their children. She was suffocating. So she creates a sickle. The sources are specific about the material. It was made of jagged flint or adamantine. She gives it to Kronos, and he separates the sky from the earth.
He castrates his own father. That is a heavy way to start a dynasty.
It is a brutal act of separation. But, and this is a fascinating sidebar in the sources, that act of violence was also creative. When that severed divinity hit the ocean, the foam mixed with the blood. And from that sea foam, Aphrodite was born.
Which is wild. The goddess of beauty and love comes from one of the most violent acts in mythology.
Beauty born from brutality is the recurring theme. But for Kronos, this act didn't bring him peace. It brought him paranoia. He learned of a prophecy that claimed his own children would do to him exactly what he did to his father.
So he decides to just stop time.
In a way, yes. He becomes the archetype of the devouring father. He refuses to let the future happen. As soon as his wife, Rhea, gave birth, Kronos didn't nurture the children. He consumed them.
Swallowed them whole.
Whole. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Poseidon, and Hades, Melinoë's father. They all spent their earliest existence trapped inside the darkness of their father's stomach.
I can't even imagine the psychological impact of that. We talk about childhood trauma, but Hades literally started his life in a living prison, eaten by his own dad. That has to shape how you view the world.
Shapes everything. From a Jungian perspective, which we have some notes on here, Kronos represents the ultimate shadow. He is the destructive, unconscious force that refuses to give way to the new generation. He is the past that eats the future.
But the cycle eventually breaks. Rhea, the mom, finally snaps.
She pulls a fast one. When Zeus is born, she wraps a stone in swaddling clothes. Kronos, blinded by his paranoia and greed, swallows the rock without checking. Zeus escapes, grows up, and eventually returns to liberate his siblings.
And that kicks off the Titanomachy. the 10-Year War.
The War of the Immortals. It's the shift from the old order of brute nature to the new order of Olympian law. When Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon finally win, they don't kill Kronos, because they can't kill a Titan, but they cast him down into Tartarus.
I want to pause on Tartarus for a second because the sources give this very specific, very vivid measurement of how deep it is. It's not just the basement.
No, it's an abyss. The text says that if you were to drop a bronze anvil from the surface of the earth, it would fall for 9 days and 9 nights before it finally hit the bottom. That is the distance between the sunlit world and where Melinoë's grandfather is locked away.
That is a terrifying image, falling for 9 days.
Hmm?
But here is the kicker for our main character, Melinoë. She lives in the underworld. So, relatively speaking, isn't she living right on top of that prison?
She is. And that proximity is key. The shadow of Kronos, that destructive, time-devouring force, is right beneath her floorboards. If we go back to the Jungian analysis, this represents the unconscious forces that are always there, deep down, threatening to rise up if they aren't integrated. Melinoë's heritage is living with that dark potential constantly buzzing beneath her feet.
So she's got the blood of the tyrant in her veins, she's living on top of his prison, but she also has her parents. And this is where the nature versus nurture argument gets interesting. Let's look at the father first, Hades.
We need to correct a massive misconception here. Pop culture loves to make Hades the villain. In movies, he's always the guy plotting to take over Olympus, usually with blue fire hair or something. But the classical sources are very clear. Hades is not evil. He is just.
He's a bureaucrat, basically.
He is the administrator of the inevitable. He is severe, yes. He is implacable. But he isn't cruel for the sake of cruelty. There's a famous story mentioned in the sources about Pirithous and Theseus, two heroes who try to break into the underworld to kidnap Persephone.
Which is a terrible idea, by the way.
A catastrophic idea. Now, Zeus might have blasted them with lightning in a fit of rage. Hades. He simply invites them to sit down for dinner. And when they sit, the chairs bind to their flesh, the chairs of forgetfulness. They are simply kept.
That is so much creepier than lightning. It's quiet.
It is efficient. It enforces the boundary. You cross the line, now you stay. The sources also refer to him by another name, Pluto.
Right, I saw that. Pluto translates to the rich, doesn't it?
It does, and it makes perfect sense if you think about it. Where do gold, silver, and gems come from? Where does the fertile soil that grows our food come from? Underground. Hades controls the deep treasures of the earth, so he isn't just the king of dead souls. He's the king of hidden wealth.
So Melinoë's dad is the stoic, wealthy, rule-following warden. But then there's the mom, Persephone. And her story, well, usually it's framed purely as a tragedy.
The abduction of Persephone is the catalyst, certainly. She's picking flowers, the ground opens up, and Hades takes her. But if we look deeper at the sources regarding her role after that event, the picture shifts. She isn't just a victim sitting in the cell waiting to be rescued. She becomes the queen.
She eats the pomegranate seeds, right? The food of the dead.
She consumes the seeds which binds her to the realm. But notice how she operates in the myths. When heroes come to beg for favors, like Orpheus trying to get his wife back, it is often Persephone who is moved. She has agency. She sits as an equal to Hades. She is active in the decision-making of the underworld.
And she's the only one who really commutes. She spends winter in the dark and summer in the light.
She is the bridge. Her movement literally dictates the seasons. When she is gone, her mother Demeter grieves, and we get winter. When she returns, life blooms. She represents the cycle of life, death, and rebirth.
So put this together from Melinoë. Her dad is the immutable, the thing that never changes. Death, stone, gold. Her mom is the cyclical life, growth, change.
It is a synthesis of opposites. This makes Melinoë a figure of what scholars call chthonic power.
Chthonic. That's a word that comes up a lot in these texts. What does it actually mean in this context?
It comes from the Greek chthon, meaning earth or soil. Chi deities are gods of the underground, associated with both the dead and agricultural fertility. They are the roots. Melinoë embodies this. She connects the spirits of the dead with the rhythm of the living. She is the result of life through death.
So she's a mediator. She stands between the absolute stillness of her father and the vibrant movement of her mother. But there is a third influence in her life, one that the sources highlight as absolutely crucial to her development. We've got the scary grandfather in the basement, the power couple parents, and then there's the teacher.
Hecate. You cannot tell this story without Hecate.
Hecate is interesting because she seems to break the rules of the hierarchy. She's a titaness, right? She's from the same generation as the bad guy Zeus fought.
She is. But she survived the purge. The sources tell us Zeus respected her above almost all others. He allowed her to keep her powers over the earth, the sea, and the sky. She wasn't thrown into Tartarus with the rest of them,
Why? Why does she get a pass?
because she possesses a specific kind of wisdom that even the king of the gods needs. Hecate is the goddess of witchcraft, but we need to strip away the modern Halloween idea of pointy hats and broomsticks. In the ancient sense, witchcraft is about knowledge of the hidden. It's about liminal spaces,
Liminal.
thresholds, doorways, the space between things. Hecate is the goddess of the crossroads. She's the torchbearer in the dark. If we go back to our Jungian map, if the underworld represents the deep, scary, unconscious mind, Hecate is the guide. She represents the archetype of the psychopomp.
The psychopomp, that's the guide of souls.
Exactly. The figure that leads the ego through the darkness without letting it get eaten. She knows the way.
And the sources mention she has a triple form.
Yes, especially in the later Roman texts where the mythology starts to blend. You have Diana, the huntress on earth,
Yeah.
Luna, the moon in the sky, and Hecate, the witch in the underworld. It creates a three-faced goddess.
So imagine Melinoë's education. Her grandfather is raw chaos. Her father is rigid law. But her mentor, Hecate, teaches her how to navigate between them.
She teaches her the hidden arts, not just magic spells, but the ability to see in the dark. For Melinoë, growing up under Hecate's tutelage means she is learning to master the shadows rather than fear them.
And that brings us back to that concept of the shadow we touched on earlier with Kronos. The source material regarding Jung suggests that the shadow, those dark, repressed parts of ourselves, can be destructive if we ignore them, like Kronos devouring his kids because he's afraid of them.
Exactly. If you repress the shadow, it eats you. But if you integrate it,
If you face it.
if you face it consciously, if you invite it to the table, it becomes a source of power. Melinoë, by being born in the dark and learning from Hecate, is basically taking a masterclass in shadow integration. She doesn't reject her lineage. She doesn't pretend she isn't the granddaughter of a child-eating tyrant. She exists because of that history, but she transcends it.
It's interesting how the sources differentiate the gods here. You have the Olympians up in the sky, Zeus, Apollo, Athena, who are all about light, order, civilization. They're shiny. And then you have these chthonic deities down below. It feels like the Olympians are the social media profile version of the universe.
That is a brilliant analogy. Yes, the Olympians are the persona, the mask we wear, the ideal, the way we want to be seen. The underworld deities are the subconscious reality, the messy truth, the things we hide.
And Melinoë.
She is the one who forces you to look at what's underneath the mask. You can't lie to a goddess of ghosts and nightmares. She sees right through the persona.
Speaking of things you can't lie to, I want to circle back to that image of the anvil falling for 9 days. That distance implies safety, right? Kronos is far away. But the expert analysis in our stacks suggests he's never really gone.
He isn't. In the myths, the Titans are defeated, but they are immortal. You can't kill an archetype, you can only bind it. This connects to the idea that our past traumas, our Kronos figures, don't vanish just because we push them down into our personal Tartarus. The danger is thinking they are gone forever.
Because if you think they're gone, you stop watching the door.
Exactly. The wisdom, Melinoë's wisdom, is knowing they're there and keeping watch. She stands guard.
So if we look at Melinoë's mission, based on these sources, she isn't just a princess sitting on a throne, she's an active force. The text mentions she rises at the crossroads.
The crossroads are significant. In antiquity, crossroads were places of magic and danger, often sacred to Hecate. A crossroad is a choice. Do you go left or right? Do you choose the easy path or the hard path? Melinoë, she stands there. She is the presence that reminds you that every choice has a shadow. Every light casts a shadow.
And she has the tools to handle it. We mentioned her father is the rich, guarding the gold. There's a metaphor there too, isn't there?
Absolutely. Psychologically, the gold, our true value, our deepest self, is often buried in the darkest part of our psyche. It's not on the surface. You have to go through the underworld to get the treasure. You have to face the dark to find the light.
It puts a whole new spin on the scary underworld. It's actually a gold mine, literally and metaphorically.
If you are brave enough to make the descent, if you have a guide.
So let's summarize the volatile mix that makes up this character. We have the blood of the tyrant Kronos, raw power and time. We have the authority and wealth of Hades' structure and consequence. We have the resilience of Persephone adaptation and rebirth. And we have the magic of Hecate knowledge of the unseen.
It is a recipe for an incredibly complex figure. She represents the necessity of facing the shadow rather than repressing it. She shows us that you could be born of darkness but still bring light, or at least bring understanding to the dark.
It's the difference between being consumed by the darkness, like Kronos, and mastering it, like Hecate and Melinoë.
There's a note here from the source material regarding Jungian shadow buffers in cathedral architecture, which is a bit of a dense read, but fascinating. It suggests that we need structures to channel these dark forces. We can't just let them run wild. Melinoë is that structure. She's the buffer between the raw chaos of the Titans and the human soul.
That is a powerful image. She's the filter. She keeps the nightmares from overwhelming us, or maybe she helps us make sense of them.
She invites us to stop running from them, to look them in the eye.
Which brings us to a final thought for everyone listening. We've talked a lot about ancient gods and deep pits in the earth, but this deep dive is really about what we carry with us.
We all have a Kronos buried deep in our own personal Tartarus. Old patterns, traumas, fears we swallowed long ago.
So the question we want to leave you with is this. Are you keeping your shadow chained up in the dark, hoping the anvil keeps it down? Or are you learning to navigate the dark, like Melinoë, so you can find the gold that's hidden there?
Because eventually, we all have to walk the crossroads.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.